certainly the difference in the first half, and maybe the difference in the game, was that early stretch with Marble and Gazelle. I mean, that was, Marble hasn't taken that many threes. So usually he's a little more selective. And so those, I wouldn't call them unexpected at all. I mean, he can make those. But usually he's a little more selective. Usually he's doing more driving it, more stuff, pull-up type stuff. And, Mike he's been a very good shooter when he's been able to catch and shoot with his feet set, and we allowed him to do that too many times in the early part of the game. And he's shown that all year long. So that's not a surprise at all.
It wasn't just them making shots, since they're getting open shots too. Where was the breakdown that you saw?
Oh, and I just talked to the guys about this, Carson. I'm going to have to watch that first 10 minutes to see. A couple of those were behind the NBA line. I'm going to have to watch to see if it was ones where we made a defensive mistake or a scouting report mistake, and that's what led to it, or if we were doing what we were supposed to and the ball ended up with one of those two guys and they just rose up and knocked it in. I'm going to have to look at that before I can tell you.
Early on, it looked like you had some open looks from three-point range. You just didn't knock them down. Did you feel like they were good looks?
Yeah, I did. I felt like, for the most part, in that early part of the game, we were getting what we wanted in transition in the half court, and certainly had some pretty good looks at three that didn't go in for us, and give their two guys credit. During that same stretch early in the game, they stepped up and knocked them in, and that gave them that cushion, and it really stayed between 5 and 10 the rest of the game after they got that initial lead.
Mark Sonnet had a tough time getting that track offensively, coming off a big game, but he got 2 early fouls. Did that throw him off, you think?
It probably did a little bit. In addition to the game we just played at George Mason, how well he played offensively, he's our leader. He's our best defensive guard, and for him to have to sit that long has an impact on our defense, and has an impact on the way we play offensively as well. But more from an emotional and a defensive standpoint, Rick, not having him on the floor, that impacts how our team plays. And to have it at 8 at halftime and him not in the game, I thought was reasonable for us to be able to come back and get it tied and have it be a one-possession game going down the stretch.
What was Marble doing so well tonight overall?
Everything. Is that fit? He had a good game. And I would guess, having watched him play a lot, and I'll say what I said earlier, he doesn't. It appears in most games, isn't quite as quick to shoot three-point shots as he was early in this game. And give him credit for rising up and knocking those in. Once that happened, I'm sure he felt like he was going to have a very good basketball game. And he was good in all areas. He made threes, he drove it, he scored around the basket, he made free throws. He was good everywhere.
Particularly in the second half, the way he's getting to the free throw line, did it kind of get the feeling of borderline unstoppable?
We certainly had a hard time today. He presents some challenges because he's got size and length, and when he knocks in jump shots, when he makes threes like he did today, the rest of his game is really good. And he forces you to think about sending a second defender a lot, and that extends your defense and allows sometimes for an open shot to take place. He commands a lot of attention.
Ben, can you talk about playing in this environment, this arena, as opposed to maybe playing in Iowa and Cedar Falls, and just compare and contrast the situation with this event?
I think this is a really good game. This is a good day of basketball, and I've said that from the start. I would venture to guess. I don't like to speak for the other coaches, but I would venture to guess that all 4 of us would prefer to have a home game as opposed to a neutral site game. Absolutely, I'd rather play the game in the McLeod Center. There's no question. And but I think Fran would say the same thing, and I think Fred would say the same thing, and I think Mark would say the same thing. Having a home game and being in your old building, there's nothing like that. But this is a good day of basketball for the state, and that we'll move forward.
Jake, you only made 3 16 threes. It seemed like Iowa was doing a good job of extending their defense and getting out to your shooters and contesting those shots. Would you agree?
Yes, yeah, they did. They did some things defensively. That was one of them, and it was evident early, Rick, that was the way that this game was going to get played. You know, they were going to flex out and not allow us to pitch the ball to some shooters in certain areas of the game, whether it be transition or driving the basketball. They made a real effort to take away a lot of those quick threes that we might get, and you know, that hurt us in some spots. At the same time, you know, Deion was in and around the rim a lot. Seth was in and around the rim a lot in the first half. You know, we had some opportunities in and around the rim, and teams are gonna make adjustments. And you know, I would, coming out of our George Mason game, you know, they did a couple things that slowed us down with some of our actions.
Ben, does that account for you only having 6 assists, or is there something else going on there if you're passing?
Yeah, I think that had a lot to do with it, Mark. The way that they played this game would force you into some actions and some things where Deion, AJ, those guys are driving it and making plays at the rim, or we're throwing it inside to Seth, maybe Jake, and those guys are making plays to get a basket for you, as opposed to guys helping a bunch where you're pitching it and shooting shots.
One more question. All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jake. Yep.